Welcome to the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we, a business owner and an artist, discuss the business of art and the art of business.
Here we go. All right. Hey, friends. I'm Carl, founder of Epic Made.
And I'm Ross, creative director at Epic Made, and we're the hosts of the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we share our thoughts on creativity, art, and business. Some past guests include Amanda Russell of Cream, Gage Mitchell of Modern Species, and Raphael Pollandagel of Split Bass.
We are forever grateful for the sponsors of our podcast, and we're always looking for more sponsors. That said, Pixel Retentive is always brought to you by the creative gurus at Epic Made. Epic Made is a team of artists and strategists with a mastery of visual storytelling. Our studio makes unforgettable animation and graphic illustration infused with ideas that put money in your pocket. We best serve marketers and brands seeking to engage nerdy millennials, and some of our favorite clients include Nickelodeon, WWE, and Sci-Fi. Visit getepicmade.com and let's collaborate on your next creative campaign.
With us today, we have Ben Moffat. In another world, Ben would be operating tractors for a living, but somehow he ended up working in the design and animation industry as the CEO of Gantry. Being a bridge between art and money isn't the most glamorous profession, but it's something that needs to be done and something Ben is quite good at. When he's not working, he enjoys the simple things like mowing the lawn, waving at his neighbors, and contemplating his place in the universe, as do we all, I'm sure. Welcome, Ben. Glad to have you.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, man. We're glad that your place in the universe at this moment is on our podcast. So,
Me too. I'm vibing and feeling good, and no existential fears crept in yet. So,
Lovely.
Cool, man.
Nice. Yeah. Well, what do you guys want to talk about today?
Sure. Well, the first thing we like to ask our guests on our esteemed podcast here, so that we can all get to know you a little bit, is tell us how long you've been in the industry and what project you are most proud of.
Okay, sure. Well, I got my start in the agency life about 15 years ago. I came up as a receptionist at a full-service agency in around 2009. I had kind of had a professional career prior to that, well outside of advertising, and I wanted to get into the industry. And my first job said, you can clean oatmeal bowls and answer the phone and go get burritos for the team and show us that you're for real. So I definitely came up doing all the grunt work. I learned to befriend the artists, and I quickly realized that in the world of omni-channel, multi-offering service agencies, I love videos. And I then had a chance to start Gantry from kind of my old company shutting down, and them just saying, keep your book of business and keep rocking and rolling. So I've been very fortunate my entire career, even though I served my dues a little bit. That's how long I've been in the industry, and that's how I came up. My favorite project that's in production, gentlemen, or that's just like of all time?
Whatever you want to talk about.
Okay. We did this video recently for a local company that makes a Slurpee. It's called Frazzit.
Okay.
And it's just the first thing that came to my mind. We do so much tech jargon videos. It was nice to do a video about Slurpees.
Yeah.
And telling a story about Slurpees was challenging. And I should say they're not Slurpees. They are the Frazzle, the Frazzle brand slush beverage. So it was just a real nice departure to do something that was just wild and colorful and full of, kind of pizzazz, rather than explaining tech, data lakes and data silos and data jet skis.
Yeah, so the Frazzle Flurry.
The Frazzle Flurry. And the video turned out great. It ended up being played at the National Convenience Store Association conference.
Nice.
A huge holographic fan wall. Have you guys seen those?
Mm-hmm.
There's a new technology where these fans spin at 30 RPMs, and it looks like the animation is just floating in space.
Oh, wow.
So we designed to that technology, and this company that hired us, Frazzle, put their fan wall up about, I don't know, 30 feet above everyone else's booth. So it kind of came in, it was like maybe the Eye of Mordor, just like, just like
Oh, yeah.
haunting you and just beckoning you to come over there. And outside of just looking really cool, it really helped this kind of up and coming company differentiate themselves and their product just through, cool visual, storytelling and just cool visuals at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. I saw one of those I was at Gen Con a couple months ago, and there was a booth that had like it was probably like a maybe 3 foot, maybe probably a little smaller than that. But I was definitely enamored momentarily, like, what is that? I've never seen that before. So I recently just saw that for the first time. I tried to take a video of it, but like the frame rate doesn't line up with the blinky lights, and like it was just like it couldn't capture it, which is also kind of cool. It's like you have to be there to experience it, right? So
yeah, totally, Carl. Yeah, it was really cool, and daunting because like if you get too close to that thing, you're losing a limb.
So getting sucked into the vortex and turned into a
giant meat grinder.
Tim was a great artist. He missed it.
R.I.P. Yeah.
Oh, geez.
So
cool, man. Well,
and they've recently come back to do another one for a new product line. So we're kind of working on that as we speak. So
cool.
Yeah, good stuff.
That sounds very fun, man. And thanks for the disclaimer. We don't need we don't need 7-Eleven getting up in our business.
Right. We know 7-Eleven. Yeah, I'm there more than I like to admit.
Yes, aren't we all?
Yeah.
Their hot dogs are fire. I'm just saying.
Oh my god. I've never eaten anything outside
of their taquitos.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, I like most of my 20s. So my not to get off topic too much, but before we even state the topic of the episode, but for like most of my college or like early 20s college thing, I was still I spent some of it at my parents' house, and they live within walking distance of a 7-Eleven. So every morning I'd wake up and I'd walk to 7-Eleven and get a chili and cheese hot dog for breakfast.
That's your 20s, Ross.
It's fantastic. I still do it sometimes.
I was gonna say, bro, you should. Like we're here for a good time, not a long time.
Yeah, exactly.
Chili cheese dogs for breakfast sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes that just achy stomach and heartburn is just nostalgic, So
that's what Tums are for, man.
It's your life.
Gross.
That's what Tums are for. You got your afternoon Tums with your lunch, and you're.
As much as Ross and I have in common, there are some places where we fundamentally divide. Yeah, I grow my food.
Oh yeah, yeah. Health and wellness are definitely dividing.
Dividing around. You get in your late 40s, Ross. And
yeah.
It's different.
Yeah. I've got a kid on the way. It's my first kid, so I'm sure that's gonna shift as well. Carl's beat me to the punch on that one.
Yeah, it pivots your entire prioritization of your life. Like it really calibrates everything.
So, without further ado, so one of the things that we're going to be talking about today, or the main topic of the episode, is going to be running sort of the ins and outs of running a small creative studio, which is something that, both sides of the table are very familiar with. So I'm excited to get maybe the differences between our approaches of doing that, the similarities, and just kind of get into the day-to-day sort of nuance of like what that's like. I don't think that we've talked about it in like a very casual sort of milquetoast degree, right? Where it hasn't been like, oh, this is what leadership is like, or this is what, and I think we might learn something from one another of, maybe take away some stuff that we don't do in our industry or our studio that the other person does, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I'm excited to just hear from y'all, and I'll share any insights of, how we do our thing around here. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, where do you think we should start, you guys?
I got a thought. So, we're all remote staff now, right? We've always been. We used to kind of fake it pre-COVID to like, oh, we've got an office, come meet at the office, or we try to do all of our video chats at the office. But we realized quickly that no one cared about that. During COVID, any stigma, if there was one, evaporated quickly. Where do you guys stand on that? How does that go for you?
We're full in person.
Oh, wow.
Yep. I'm in my office. There's 5 other people here in the office right now. There is one employee that lives pretty far away, and he was our very first artist and employee. So he actually will come in occasionally, but he's the one cat that will zoom in. It's never proved to be a problem. I'm not some hard ass about, return to the office. I don't believe in any of that shit. I believe good work happens wherever good artists are.
Yeah.
And if the vibe is right and people communicate, so I don't prescribe to that, got to be grinded in here. But for us, we have a really cool building in downtown Salt Lake. We worked together for years prior to COVID. We took 2+ years of working from home. And just like you said, Carl, it definitely works. But we do find a lot of incidental collaboration, just being in the same production room together and like, oh, hold on. I just saw you been doing that out of the corner of my eye. It'll be, this company hates red. They hate that red. Mm-hmm. So, we get a little benefit of it. We talk a lot of shit and have fun at the office, but I think you can still do all of that without being in person.
Oh yeah. I mean, the whole art team talks a ton of shit about Carl all the time. So
yeah, they say about me, Ross.
Yeah.
You learned a lot of like Carl.
How are we still in business 15 years later? This guy's fucking nuts.
And probably because you're nuts that we're still in business.
It's because nobody can forget me after they meet us once. It's not really has anything to do with my business acumen,
They know this guy now. This is a legend.
Yeah, right.
But
it's funny. It's funny. Like right off the bat, that's a huge difference between the way that we're running, or way that we're operating, is because there have been plenty of moments. I'd be lying if I said that there wasn't value that I can easily see in being in person, right? Because, like you said, there's a bunch of incidental, sort of almost multitask collaboration that ends up happening where you look over. It happened a lot with me in college, right? Where we were all sort of next to each other on our respective Cintiq tablets or whatever, and you would just glance over and see someone doing something, and you'd be like, "Oh man, how did you do that?" Or what did so on and so forth. There's a lot of learning opportunities and a lot of collaborative opportunity there, especially as the creative director of the team. It's definitely easier for me to point at the screen and be like, hey, you need to adjust this thing or whatever, rather than use remote tools to do that. But the way that we're operating, the team isn't exclusively local. There's a large chunk of it that is, but I mean, we've worked with artists in France, in Indonesia, in Europe, in England. Okay, France is in Europe. So I'm pretty sure. As well as just across, California, and so on and so forth, right? Maryland.
Yeah.
And so it allows us a little bit more flexibility in that, like, we have a core team, but we can always reach out to, contractors who have a specialization that maybe the core team doesn't share. And we're already working remote. So it's not this weird break-in process.
Totally.
But it definitely had to overcompensate for like not being able to like sit down and show someone how I would like something to look or how it needs to be timed from an animation standpoint or something like that.
Totally. And Ross, kind of on the heels of that, maybe one other difference between our shops is that, I think we've used maybe 2 freelancers in 7 years.
Gotcha.
Everything stays in-house at Gantry except for, VO, script writing. Even then we're way involved in it, but that has been kind of something that, we're always hiring design first mentality with a generalist skill set so that we can just, if you're good and you have the eye and we can see that, we'll then teach you to animate. We've taught 2 of our employees who are now, some of the best animators. We just taught them how to animate once they came in, but they already have the design sensibility. So
yeah, it's so funny that it's so funny that you mentioned that, because that's the one thing you can't teach, right? Is the eye for the There's a word for it, I promise.
Yeah, I think that's right. I don't know.
Like
It's a different word.
The cinematic eye, like if someone can't see that their stuff isn't timed right, or that it's not framed in a way that's exciting, that's really, really hard to teach.
I don't think you can. I mean, maybe you can, but I hate to say it. I just think some cats have it.
Yeah.
And some cats just struggle with it. And I mean, I've met some bang up animators who've wanted to come work for us. And I'm like, you just have no design sense.
Yeah.
And I love you. And, like maybe take some school of motion classes or try to get follow more studios. I think a lot of what happens sometimes is they're just not immersed in the art form enough itself. They just kind of get so niche down and well, I just want to, make things move. And it's you need to absorb and digest and, be a super fan of all these other studios, kind of, bring it into you even more.
Are you the person recruiting your talent as well? How does that go on your end? You have somebody else doing that?
I really do a good job of staying out of the artist at Gantry's hair.
Okay.
I mean, it really, at the end of the day, gentlemen, my main thing is to empower. I always say artists got to art, and as someone that's kind of been in bands and, I know what artists are like intrinsically, and I know they don't want to hear synergy and, any of this shit. They don't want any of this rah-rah shit. They don't want trust falls. They don't want you telling them how to do their work.
Yeah.
Even though sometimes I have an opinion, and then so back to hiring, Carl, I'll be in the room and I'll add a thought if I think this person's chemistry seems wrong, but artistically I just shut up.
Oh, I mean, so I kind of funnel things to Ross. If I see somebody or somebody comes across my desk, I tell them hey, this isn't my, I don't run this part of the business, but I definitely filter out 50% of okay, this person's not even remotely, it's just, they're not ready for the level of work we do. And then if they are, I kick them to Ross, because Ross sees things that I don't even see, especially on the motion side. I'm traditionally trained in graphic design, and I'm an artist on a crazy art for art's sake kind of space. I have a whole side studio where I just do collaborations with my posthumous collaborations with my dad, and none of that falls into any sort of commercial production value art, right? It is just colorful and explosive and crazy, and it just feeds my soul, but has nothing to do with epic made, right? Other than it gives me some street cred as an artist myself. But yeah, I don't even know what to look for in really good high detailed lighting. The shit that Ross is really looking for, it almost kind of goes past me. I can be mesmerized with some tricks where Ross is yeah, but he's just covering up all this shit here because he doesn't know what he's doing. And I was oh, but it's shiny. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's props to you, Carl, for knowing, know what you don't know. I always believe, I've never once been the smartest person in a room. I promise you, not once, ever. Not even with my, 9-year-old nieces. I always feel I got something to learn from someone else.
Always, yeah.
And, to recognize that in your team and then to empower them, that's really what it's about. I think that's, that's your job, honestly, Carl.
It really is. My whole thing is kind of, this is a company by artists for artists, right? So I try to nurture that mentality. If you, so the remote work thing has worked well for us, because I feel all the people I've hired Ross has got his little nook there at his house where he feels the safest and the most creative and the most experimental and I'm not going to try to recreate that here somewhere else. No, everyone do wherever you, and there's been some people that need to work in an office, and those people probably don't fit great here for us, because it's just, some people need their hand held, or they need some structure. They need a real clear delineation between, their work and their home life, which is fine. It's just understanding what's a fit for your organization and the thing and the way you work doesn't mean someone's bad or not good or they won't be successful. Just hey, they're not going to work here because we do things this way, right? And I had to understand that along the way as well. So
yeah. What about you, Ross? Do you, when Carl kicks you someone, or do you guys even have a two-way street where you're yo, Carl, I saw this cat and they're, they've got what I want to see and we're hiring?
Yeah. So, I've picked up a few artists as an alumni, for the college I went to, Art Institute. I'm not super crazy about.
They're shutting down, by the way, entirely.
They've already done it. But yeah, I'm not super crazy about it. I'm hoping to get maybe some lawsuit refunds for my student loans. That'd be great. But the reality of it is like a lot of the my lead artist Kira, she was in my class, right? So like I pulled her directly from my relationship with that school. I've gone back a few times to just see, if there's any artists that that could that have that like spark, right? Like the eye where I can teach someone how to draw and I can teach someone how to animate, because a lot of animation is just like, it's kind of like math, right? Like once you boil it down to the process of animating, it's just, there's a right way to do it. You know what I mean?
I'd agree with
the nebulous artistic part is the cinematographic, cinematic sort of. Let me get that word right.
It's the cinematography, right? It's the cinematography angle and then the perspective.
It's the inspiration, it's the imagination behind it, right? Like the stuff you can't teach.
Yep.
And you could be hesitate to say bad artist, but like you could be less skilled and have that and make it sooner here than someone who doesn't have it and is great at like a technical drawing standpoint or a technical animating standpoint and just cannot work the idea on their own.
Yep.
And so
just to put it that way. Yeah, I totally agree. It's like, I always see it in someone's like sketchboards. I don't know if you guys, when you're doing a video for us, and it's like, hey, here's the script. We make the script. Now draw me your rudimentary concepts to cover it. And it's like, okay, for security, I am using a lock.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I need you to think of, different metaphors. I need to think, I need you to think of how the visual language will work for this. And, and even if it is a lock, are we looking at it from an inferior pose, or are we looking at it in the context of, a world? So all those little things, it's like you said, that's the spark that's hard to, maybe impossible to teach.
Yeah, it's funny. So I'm kind of a prescribed sociopath, right? So like Carl also helps me a lot by checking the the culture side of hires, right? Like it just doesn't matter to me personally.
That's because I filter them all first. I promise you it won't matter.
That's what I mean. There's been instances where it has mattered functionally, but it's not something that I care to look for when I'm hiring someone, right? Because I do all the hiring, like in terms of the art. I'm the guy I'm the guy who kind of like says, yeah, this person's good and we should use them. And so having them talk to Carl either first or second, but as part of the hiring process, is incredibly valuable, because Carl will be the one that says, oh, I think the vibe of this person is off. Or I think I'm looking at them from a purely technical and artistic standpoint. Can they create something powerful and emotional and beautiful and technically sound? And can they do it on a deadline? And can they communicate like a human being and take criticism and things like that? But doesn't register to me very easily if they're going to be a good fit from like an emotional, cultural standpoint.
That makes sense. Well, but they should too have each other to help with that, kind of balance things out.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
The EQ and the IQ, as Gary B talks about all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
IQ.
Yeah. I think that one of the, so we do storyboards, obviously, and kind of going back to something that you mentioned earlier with like the lock concept. I think the biggest strength that we found that we have as a team from a conceptual and strategic standpoint is creating metaphors for visual ideas, right? Because I personally study screenwriting and storytelling, and like I study making movies and TV shows for fun. And one of the easiest ways to break down a story and make it digestible for someone is to create symbols or proxies for ideas in the visuals, whether that's through characters or through, symbols like the lock versus, for security. And I mean, a lot of that stuff comes from the top end where it's like Carl and I talking about it, or me and the project rep, and me and Kira, my lead artist. Like we bounce those ideas out, and I send a lot of that to the art team, and it's how they interpret it that a lot of the time creates additional discussion, right? Like stuff that I wouldn't have considered, or I don't tell them how to visualize it. I just tell them kind of like what I think are going to be the best lanes to go into. And I think that
a brief, Ross, or do you sketch stuff out? Like,
honestly,
in a meeting and talking?
I try to cater it on a per artist basis. There's a lot of our, so I usually have at least one artist kind of as the lead for the project in the event that it needs to be multiple people, because it doesn't always have to be that. So I usually have one artist as the lead, and a couple of artists follow them. And I try to kind of cater my communication toward how they'll be most effective. Like I have one artist who, they'll, every single time I tell them to do something, they'll over deliver, right? It doesn't matter what the budgetary constraints are, what the time constraints are. Like, even if it's on their own time for no extra pay, they will just over deliver, right? And so I have to be a little bit more strategic about how I talk to that person, so that I don't burn them out, right?
Right.
And so I have a couple people who are very technical minded, right? And so I have to draw more for them, because I know that they're going to nail the art side of it, but they might not be as skilled in the cinematography or in the framing, or that sort of thing. Or they might overcommit on a special effects thing that the client might not want, or something. You know what I mean? So I try to cater my communication to who I know I'm talking to.
Smart, really smart.
So I've got a question, just on the leadership side and how you run things. Is there anything, like a particular specific piece of advice that like has struck you along the way that really kind of changed how you operate, or anything like that maybe you guys do differently, or you do differently as a leader, that you think adds to your success overall?
I think really it just comes down to ditching the words and the power that comes along with whatever title I may hold. Like, I've worked for people that don't know how to stay in their lane. They're micromanaging everything. They're unfocused. They're reactionary. My whole thing was when I started Gantry with the other two partners, for me, it was like, I don't want to be a unicorn company. I hate that shit. I hate like year over year revenue, 10x multipliers. We're going public. Like I knew right off the bat, this was a lifestyle business for me. At the essence of it, it was like an artist utopia where I knew we could make money doing art. And I really would advise anyone that, is in a creative studio, running a shop, to really just, if you're infatuated with yourself, get over it. That's probably my number one advice. You're missing out on so many potential opportunities for other people to bring things to the table, for you just to, like usually on a meeting, it's kind of weird for me to be talking. I usually just sit there and listen, and just kind of like, and I see a lot of leadership that, all right, we're on the meeting, I'm up there, here we go. And it's this performance, and it's this, it almost just feels like it's an extension of their ego rather than a way to make art and make money. So, I'm like, if you got into the creative industry in the first place, hopefully there was a seed of that at some point, and if you've lost track and you're, revenue focused and you got to make money.
Yeah.
You got to make money. And
Right.
like just showing my cards, I never analyze the performance of a project. I look at it quarterly. I look at it monthly. I mean, that's kind of my job is to, all right, like we're excelling. We can blow hours, just whatever you want on this, like satisfy your soul.
Right.
Beautiful.
So I really just think, if you're in the creative studio industry, make great art. You're going to make money because of that, but just try to get out of the way of like being this rock star shit. Like, I just think that stuff's so passe. And, go to Costco and get your team some shit that they need. Feed them, take them to see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. How their life is. See what they need. If they need new tools, buy them. Don't like, oh, we'll wait for a new project that needs, the X particle system. It's like, just buy it. You have the money, buy it. Right. Invest in yourself, invest in your team, get out of your own way.
I love that.
Absolutely.
It's like a family kind of approach, which is, it feels very...
It's very parallel to how we run, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just in general, a lot of what Ben just said could easily be in our mission statement as well, right? I mean, it's one of those, like you said, I mean, you consider Epic Made to be a business by artists for artists, right? Like it, and that concept of like, hey, we know that this is going to be awesome, so I'm not worried about what it costs, right? I mean, that's how we landed some of these really large clients, right? Like we actually lost money doing the sci-fi animation.
Yeah. That was our first like household name. I was like, guys, I don't give a fuck. Like,
yeah,
let's hit this out of the park. I mean, we spent more than we got paid on it. It's like,
that's right.
Because I knew where it was the trajectory it was gonna put the business on, and how rewarding it was gonna be for us to do that. So
yeah, and it was, right. I mean, and that to that point, that's what I mean by we lost money, is we spent more than we got paid. But like but like just when you get, like you said, when you get out of the way of the people who are creating, like almost all artists got into this business because they have a piece of themselves they want to give to the world. And most of them never get a chance to do that on their own. They're always doing it for somebody. And so when you give these creatives room to put their own essence into it, their own stamp into it, it's surprising how quickly they become leaders, right? Like how quickly they say, okay, well, this is what I want to do. Because most of, like almost every other industry is very drone focused, right? Like it's very, hey, you do this thing because this is the process. Whereas that just that doesn't work in our industry. Every client is different. Every project is different. And there's no one, like you can try to make processes for some of the early steps. But like beyond that, it just has to be ad hoc. And so like,
and the artist has to connect with it, or the artist, like it's, if you bridle that too hard, then everyone just hates it, and the work sucks. The client's like, it just doesn't have any pizzazz. So yeah, Ross, I totally agree with you.
And to that point, like I think we've mentioned this in the podcast before, but when we sent our first draft, like I think we went straight to animatic for sci-fi.
Yeah.
And which for if anyone doesn't know what that is, it's essentially a moving storyboard paced to music or paced to the dialogue or so on and so forth. And the agent we were using, they came back and said, hey, so this is the first time we've ever sent something to sci-fi that has no revisions. Like they just want to move forward. And we're literally blown away by this concept that they're like, they just love it and they don't want to change it at all.
And so rewarded.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
Yeah, and it's just, I think it speaks to the fact that like we did what we knew needed to be done.
And the trust in yourselves and your inherent, like, your spidey senses were tingling, like, let's just do this.
100%.
No one was like, well, you're a cost center, you're already at a 7x multiplier, It's like, oh. Yeah. So good for you guys. I'm glad you share that same principle. It's really served us well. And, your reputation to me is all you really have in this industry. It's like, if you're known for doing cool work, meaningful work that solves our client's problem, if you can bring all that together, you'll make money, even if you have a couple of, ones that go way over budget or just, lose epic amounts of, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, shit happens.
Exactly. You just got to be, I just think you need to be a little more resilient than that and think longer term. So I would always suggest any business owner, like, just think past this project, think well past this project. I mean, I imagine for you cats, it's the same. Most of our business is repeat.
Yeah.
Or referral from that,
Yeah.
client.
Oh, without doubt. Yeah.
So it's a good way to do it.
Yeah. And that the reputation side of it is kind of why I don't think very many members of the team, if any, are very scared of AI, right? Because it's one of those things that there is a reputation that matters in this community. And even outside of creative studios working together, clients, whether they realize it or not, they pick up on that reputation, right?
They do, Ross.
And you can't gather reputation without your own voice, and there's no way to put your voice into an AI creation, at least currently.
We're on the same page, exactly, man. I mean, plus the whole copyright thing, it's
oh well, yeah. I mean, you can't
own it anymore, Yeah, it's like right.
So it defeats the point almost of hiring an agency. Like, so it's twofold, right? They're trying to create something unique, special, kind of out of the box, whatever thing they're looking for. And a lot of times they have in-house teams, but because they're stuck in that corporate space that's very like, hey, we got to be reportable to the shareholders and all that. Like, they can't afford to take the level of risk that we can take as independent creative agencies, which is why they hire us. And then they also need to be able to own the shit that we make for them, which, I think insulates us even further from AI. So,
dude, spot on, Carl, spot on. Yeah, we were at Dash Bash, I think it was 2 months ago, and Ariel Costa, I don't know if you're familiar with, he's an artist he's bounced between all the shops, just a really like avant-garde, hot shit,
Yeah.
He started his presentation with just this giant slide that just said, fuck AI, they're just like bounced for 5 minutes. And, then he just kind of went into his talk, and, he said, our job is something he said that really resonated with me is our job as artists and studios is to create colorful worlds for our clients, and bring their clients into those worlds. And like, basically it's almost like the metaverse, what that dreams of being. It's like, we're actually doing that already with the ideas we generate and the way we bring those ideas to life. So, but yeah, I'm not stressed on AI. I've dicked with it a little bit to like, give me some headline options, for something stupid, like just some droll work. And even then I'm like, God, this sounds like some fraternity bros wrote this shit. I swear AI is like the most bro-y thing I've ever encountered.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean,
you're not wrong.
You know what it is good for though? Both the visual sides like Midjourney or ChatGPT, the auditory, I guess, or narrative side. It's fantastic at closing a deficit that I think a lot of artists, I'm curious to see if your studio runs into this problem. It closes a deficit that I think a lot of artists have, and it's finding a simple solution. Like, a lot of the time, we want there to be a more complex solution. We want there to be a executable that is more fantastical, because we're always thinking further than what the most basic step is, right? And a lot of the time that works well, but there are instances where you write yourself into a corner, or you end up with a message that is confusing to metaphors or something, right? Where AI is really good at just giving you the basic answer that you would think would be obvious to anyone who looks at it. So it's not useful most of the time, but when your head is in the clouds, it's actually really grounding. And that's what I've been using it for mostly, is just being like, hey, I'm so left field on like what this character should be doing or what the next scene should be or whatever. Like, let me type this into AI and just see what it spits out as the next scene.
Yep.
You know,
it definitely is a great tool for that. You know, I think we all know it's not going anywhere, you know, and it'll continue to. So I was sketched out, and I think the entire industry was sketched out, maybe still are, but like, I don't know if y'all felt it, but like the last 4 months with the corporate layoffs.
Oh yeah.
You know, the rollout of Midjourney and ChatGPT, it was like everything just kind of went, it's like, what the shit, you know? And now I think it's like, we're seeing a lot of like, oh, right, what we thought maybe it could do, it's like not even remotely able to do that. The IP is, you know, it's really troublesome. Let's go back to our tried and true humans and, you know, studio owners and studio artists. Let's write. We need them. Let's let them do their thing. So,
and at the end of the day, we're going to be the facilitators of those tools as they evolve, right? Like what they're great at for me is eviscerating creative block, because as creatives, as people that keenly know, like, hey, what looks good, what sounds good, like, you know, like I'm not a writer, but like I can write. It just takes me forever. But these things, they'll just kind of like shit out this little version of you, like, oh, that's terrible. And then you start thinking why, and then all of a sudden you have a great idea that spun out of like a deflection off of something that wasn't that great of an idea, which I think is really powerful as well. So
totally, Carl. That's how I use it a lot. Just like I don't know, like I'm just like really, I'm spinning. Oh, gross. No, you know, it's like the McDonald's principle. Have you guys ever heard that? If you're with your friends and you don't know where to go to lunch, you always suggest McDonald's. And then someone inevitably goes, Jesus Christ, no.
I have a better idea.
Anything.
This place. And then you're like,
Unless
I just played you. I dropped McDonald's because I knew you knew somewhere you wanted to go. You just couldn't get it out.
Oh, perfect. I've never heard that. And I absolutely am going to incorporate that into my life because it sounds wonderful. And I'll never let anyone take me to McDonald's. Like that'll never be the place. So it's a perfect. That's great.
Yeah, like someone taught me to that. I love that. Like,
I can't believe the place is still fucking in business. Like, who really goes on? I mean, you know, I guess Donald Trump puts a lot of money there, apparently.
Yeah, there's people that love it. I think it's, you know, I know my wife occasionally will be like, I just got a fillet of fish and ate it in the parking lot. Don't tell anybody. And I'm like, that's fine. You know,
yeah, it won't work. It won't work for me. My wife likes McDonald's. So.
See, and I think there's a lot of cats that really do like it.
So. Yeah, but they're all in the closet now, right? Like it's like a shameful thing.
Don't look at me.
Tell us you hate yourself without telling us you hate yourself.
You can even call it the Arby's principle for those. You know.
She loves Arby's too.
I love Arby's too. So,
you know, Jesus Christ. No, I mean, I think that.
Just kidding. We'd love to work with those brands if they're ever, you know, available. Right. Some great animation out there.
Yeah, we'll help you break down that perception. We just
stigmatized for you.
Yeah, exactly. While simultaneously insulting like a good third of the people listening.
Yeah,
we all love you, just you know, for different reasons.
Right?
Yeah.
Stressed.
Cool, man. Well, we're coming up on time here, so we might be time, Ross, to roll into the final question here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess right before we do that, there was something that before we got into talking about McDonald's. There was a thread I wanted to pull on real quick, which was your guys basically saying like you use ChatGPT as a way to spit out bad ideas and then correct them, right? And I think creativity, and I've said this for a long time, Carl, creativity is just problem solving. Like that's really all it is in essence when you think about it. And if you have nothing to solve, that's the whole blank page thing that artists, like blank canvas thing that artists are like, they jokingly fear, right? It's this idea that like, oh, what do I do? Because anything is possible. Because I can do anything on this canvas what should it be? And asking AI, when you have a problem to solve, asking AI to give you the worst version of it allows you to kind of correct it using creativity, because you know how something should be fixed. You might just not know how to start it.
No, I think that's right on. And I'd even like started challenging just to see how weird I could get ChatGPT. I'll be like, write me a sales email, 2 sentences long, pretend that you're Robert Smith from The Cure and you are coming off a hangover. Like, I try to like humanize it and get it to just be like, whatever, neural engine is powering, it's just like, sends it to some other room. Like, what the hell did this do just? So I think, the prompt engineers and, all those people, it'll be an interesting methodology that continues to unfold. But, that whole creativity loves constraints or needs constraints, at work, I do believe in that. And, Carl, to your point of, the art you do to kind of honor your dad and the just like purely just like almost cathartic art. Like
It is.
And Ross, I'd even be interested for you because like I write songs and sometimes I think it'll just come. And Carl, I'll finish my thought and I want to hear you guys' thoughts, but like, I'm not trying to solve a problem, although I think inherently there's something inside of me that's like bubbling up, whether it's an emotional well that's coming up or just something I've been reading or, the a scent in the room or something like that can just spawn creativity. So what do you guys think about that time when, it's not a client project, there's no budget associated with it? Like do you guys still have those moments? And, what do you do with them?
Carl is significantly, he's giddy to answer this question, so I'm gonna let him go first.
Go, Carl.
Yeah, dude. So to answer that question, it is kind of contradicting to, I think where Ross was framing that is from more of like an actual commercial perspective, right? Like in terms of like this art has to do something. So in the commercial world, art has to solve problems, right? That is why it is being commissioned. But on the human side, there's just the pure creative thing. I think we're here to make things. I think that profoundly in our human psyche, that creativity is a core of our evolution as a creature on this planet. And that's how we got into all of this. Like all the things we make come from that pure creative space. That's how we create culture. That's how we've created different languages and songs and everything. Like everything in this world that isn't grown in nature without our influence. And even like plants in my backyard have artificial selection that I'm just picking out plants that I like and growing stuff from seeds for 11 years. I take great pride in the fact that I have my own tomatoes and my own cannabis and my own corn and my own, that's mine, that I've been growing from seed for years and years and years. Doesn't grow anywhere else because I've got a different gene pool now, So yeah, there's something there, and it brings joy, just pure blissful joy. And that's the whole project I do with my dad. It's just like I had to find a place to heal my soul, and I felt like broken that I'd never got to make enough art with my dad, and I found this way of doing it just to purely just like, I don't know why, I just picked up one of his sketches one day and I was like, I'm gonna finish this for my dad. And I just started doing art, and now it's a whole thing. I've done like 60 of them. They're fucking beautiful, and they just bring me joy to look at them. And there's no purpose other than like immortalizing my father and continuing on his creative legacy somehow feels significant in my life. So
I love it. What about you, Ross? Do you kind of get down to just spark hits just to make for making?
Yeah. So
he's a storyteller.
What do you say?
Okay.
You're a storyteller.
Yeah. So so I have my, like, so Carl has Colorful Carl, which is his sort of side brand, personal brand as an artist. I have my own. It's called Outer Eye Studios. It's just me, but I felt like studios fit somehow. I'm not the only one. Okay. So I, like Carl said, I don't, for a long time, I said outwardly to people that I don't really get any joy from doing art, right? Like internally. But I have a need to give my vision to the world, right? It's not because I don't like the process of drawing. But I'm very, very, very good at it. And I become hyper focused, and the problem solving element of it for me isn't just in the commercial end, right? It's how do I properly convey what's in my head, right? So I'm not trying to solve a problem with the end product. I'm trying to solve problems while working through it, which is my issue is there's no lighting in this. How does that properly convey the mood I'm trying to, right? And so like since I was in 7th grade, my best friend John, who also works with us, and I started working on a story. It's called Supernal, and we made it into a webcomic that Epic made backs as well. Recently, like 2020, it killed our D&D game that we were holding once a week. And I was like, I have all this free time because I don't have to run a D&D game. I might as well actually pursue my life goals. So we worked on it since 7th grade, right? That was when I decided I was going to become an artist. John wanted to do the more business side of things, and that's where we are in this business as well. John's operations and client management. I'm the whole back end of the art team. And so we worked on it all through high school. Like the reason I'm good at drawing is because of that project. Like, because I did it every day. That was my practice, right? Was creating this thing. But it was never because I liked drawing. It was always because I wanted this thing to be made.
It's kind of have this itch inside your head, and you need it to scratch, and you're like, well, this is how I get it out. And turns out I'm pretty good at this, actually, maybe really good at this.
Yeah, and I draw a lot of my pop figurine wall. It's actually like two layers deep. It's all villains. Like it's all cinematic or TV show, movie villains, right? And so I do a lot of villain fan art of like my favorite villains and things like that because they embody moral concepts that I really latch onto, right? Like and that's where a lot of my storytelling comes in is based on moral quandary or philosophical conflict and things like that. And so there is sometimes where I'm just like, man, I need to give my take on this. And that's where that creative itch comes from. It's never because I'm like, oh man, I just, as a creative, I feel like I need to draw because I love drawing and I feel sad that I'm not drawing right now. It's, I have a tumultuous relationship with art because of that. Because there are instances where I don't want to draw, but I want to produce something.
Yeah, you're in an interesting spot, man. Sounds like at least you've got itches to be scratched and you're scratching them. Yeah,
absolutely.
For me, that's kind of what it comes down to. Like, I can't tell you how many voice memos I have on my phone of me just like in my room, like, or in the living room with my wife, like, yelling at our kid and like dishes clanking, and I'm just trying to get this idea out, even though it's ugly I think it does kind of come down to a scratch that needs to be, attended to.
Right.
Yeah. Whether, and it's oftentimes just like, God, I just got to get this out. And then there's a little sense of, relief, or often, oh shit, now that's led to this thing and I got to like get that out. So it can be a slippery slope, but thank God we have something that allows us to do, like you said, Carl, like you got to make humanity. I do agree. The people I see that struggle with happiness, oftentimes I don't think they have anything to make, and they think they're not an artist. I think, hell, you can be an artist as a gardener. You can be an artist as an accountant. You can make it arty and, your own. So
human expression, right? Like that's it. Like that's the fundamental core of creativity. You're absolutely right. I mean, I think depression at its core is just a lack of a constructive place to pour yourself into, right? Like whatever that is. It doesn't have to be for money. It doesn't have to be like You can knit, anything like you said, anything can be adapted to your sort of creative vibe.
So yeah, I always encourage anyone I know that's just like this struggling. I'm like, what have you made lately?
Yeah,
or like, what have you have you dreamt anything up? Like, let's just get together and go to lunch, and just tell me some shit. Like, just talk to me, and I promise you'll get something going. So
yeah,
we just went into some deep philosophical stuff there, but I think we all got into this industry because we do like to make, and we like to do, and then we like to get on to the next thing.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of those ideas are fleeting, and I think a lot of people take them for granted, right? Like the shower thoughts and all that stuff. Like I have, speaking of Moffat, Stephen Moffat's rendition of Sherlock inspired me. The BBC Sherlock inspired me to make like a mind palace thing on so Sherlock whenever he's trying to figure out like a whole case, he goes to his mind palace. It's this physical manifestation of his thoughts, right?
Yep.
And so I built a Discord channel just for me. Like, it's literally called like Ross's Mind Palace, and I've divided it, and like, I just talk to myself on it in divided areas. So if I ever want to open a door to, hey, what was I thinking about Supernal, or what was I thinking about the next villain fan art I want to do, or what was I have already chronicled all that stuff in an organized fashion that I can just go back to as an archive, and it's helped dramatically keep me motivated whenever I'm like, I don't know what I want to do. I feel like I've had a bunch of good ideas, but they're all gone now. So, it allows me to go back.
Palace. Yeah, that's great. We'll keep it up. That sounds like a rad little exercise and thing you build there.
I love that, Ross. I can't believe you've never shared that with me before. Look at this. We spend all day, every day together for 11 years, and I learned things about you on, however many episodes into the podcast we are here.
I think this is 25.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So we are, we're probably past time at this point, but I'm glad that everyone's still doing good on time. We should wrap though. And before we do, we have one last question for you, Ben. We ask this to all of our guests, is there anyone or anything in your career that you'd like to shout out for the audience? Maybe that's a mentor, a valuable resource, a favorite client, so on and so forth. The floor is yours.
Yeah. I'd like to give a shout out to someone I met briefly at Dash Bash, and it's a studio out of the UK called The Line, and I had never heard of them, but it's this team of artists who just do kind of what brought me into animation. It's that kind of Voltron style, almost almost anime. A lot of the guy who gave the speech, he's like, you ever notice how an animator's a giant robot's always the best friends with a little kid? Like, and so it was just a studio that I recently discovered. I fell in love with their work. They have very much a similar ideology that we do in approaching business. They always put their art first. So if anyone hasn't checked out The Line, I would highly recommend they check out that studio and get inspired. And then I also love, I really love a lot of the work y'all do over Epic Made. I love the studio Cream. And then there's another studio called Cabeza Patata. And if you Google them, you'll see these characters they developed. They've got this, they're one of those studios that's really dope, all in on a style, and it's serving them well, whereas I kind of like to be more of a generalist. I admire when someone's like, this is my voice, and you're going to get more of this from me. So yeah, check out some of those places, and I think you'll be inspired.
Hell yeah. Fantastic. We certainly will check them out. So
yeah, check them out, y'all. Otherwise, this was just so rad. I'm about to go have some Mexican food over at a local place right by our office here. So
heck yeah.
Yeah, I had such a good time, you guys. Thank you for asking me to be involved.
Yeah, man. It was a pleasure having you. And We definitely, appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. I'm sure there's some great nuggets in here for everybody.
Yeah, well, can't wait to see it and hear it. Yeah, if you need anything else, just give me a shout.
Cool. Heck yeah. So we've been talking with Ben Moffat, who's the CEO at Gantry. You can check out their website at gantry.tv. But if listeners want to follow up with you directly, Ben, where should they go?
Yeah, probably just hit me up at ben@gantry.tv. I pride myself on getting back to every email within 24 hours. So, and no one's, I'm never too cool to talk to anybody. So if you want to talk and shoot the breeze or ask me some questions, look at work, happy to do that.
Love that.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
All right, Ben, thanks so much for being on our show. And
yeah, thanks, Carl. Thanks, Ross. I hope you guys have a good rest of the day. And yeah, sending you good vibes.
All right. Until next time, everybody.
All right. See you, dudes. Bye.
We really hope you enjoyed the show. Please like and subscribe to join us on our next journey through the world of art and business on the Pixel Retentive Podcast.